opportunities that we have in China to bring new business to the state of Georgia. And so what I'd like to do at this time is ask our chair, Guanming Fang, to come up, make a few comments, and introduce our first speaker. Guanming?
Hello everyone, my name is Guanming Fang. I am the chairman of Georgia-China Alliance, and I'm also a lawyer with Wombo Carlisle Anderson Rice. Thank you very much all for coming, and I also wanted to thank Doug for organizing this beautiful event. It's looking great. And also I wanted to point out that this is the second time Doug has to do this. And I think he's almost gotten the weather perfectly right this time, unlike the last time we had to cancel because of the snow. And we promise that you are not going to be stranded in traffic. Not because of us anyway, maybe Atlanta traffic, but it has nothing to do with us. So very glad that you all can come, and I know that some of you have to juggle your schedules. And I actually, I'm an adjunct professor at Emory Law School, and one of my students cut short her vacation in Miami so that she can come. I'm so happy. So that tells you how important this event is. So I also want to thank our sponsors of this event. Without the sponsors, it's impossible to do this. And I want to thank Georgia Power for hosting this and for contributing to the food and drink, and also the Metro Atlanta Chamber, Jorge Fernandez, whom you will hear in just a few minutes. And thank you very much for helping us with this. And all the beautiful posters outside about China are presented by the Kennesaw State University Confucius Institute. Ken Jin, the executive director, is here. Thank you, Ken, very much for contributing to the success of this event. And so that leads to my next point, which is about Georgia-China Alliance. I want to just say a few words about who we are and what we do, and also want to encourage you to participate in as many ways as you can. Georgia-China Alliance is a nonprofit organization. Many of you, I see a lot of familiar faces, and I have a lot of friends in this crowd, so a lot of you know who we are, and I apologize for the repetition, but just bear with me for those who don't know us yet. So we're a nonprofit organization. Our only goal is to promote commerce, business interaction between Georgia and China. We do a lot of speaking events, try to present education information about China to the business community here. And also sometimes we'll receive Chinese delegations. We host events roughly once a quarter. Our next one will be in June, so hopefully you can participate as well. Our website has some information. We're not very technical people, so I cannot brag about our website too much, but we do have some basic information about our organization at georgiachina.com. So the ways you can participate is sponsor events like that if you are able to, and become our member. Become a member, and we charge a very moderate fee for being an annual member. And also just sign up for our event announcements and come to our events. That would be great. Let's see. So a couple of, just one housekeeping stuff, and I know that you did not come here to listen to me, so I'll get to our speaker very quickly, but just one very quick housekeeping items. I somehow neglected to put company name or any introduction information on name tags, so if you want to write your company name in your name tag, feel free to do so. And also, we recycle everything we can. We're very financially humble. So on your way out, at the end of this event, please leave your name tag behind, okay? Please leave them on the table, and we will use them the next time. So that means a lot to us. So without further ado, I want to introduce to you Jorge Fernandez, Vice President of Global Commerce from the Metro Atlanta Chamber. I've known Jorge for many, many years, actually. from 2006, basically. Jorge leads a team of economic development professionals at the Metro Atlanta Chamber, focusing on recruiting international business to the Metro Atlanta area. We've traveled to China two times, maybe, something like that. Before joining the Metro Atlanta Chamber in 2006, Jorge worked for Delta Airlines for a long time. He was a pilot, command pilot there, and he also had a lot of administrative responsibilities in serving in various positions in that organization. Jorge is originally from Cuba. He's fluent in English, Spanish, and Portuguese, so he's a true international person. And he has a long resume, and I can't read it.
It's not about me. It's okay.
And I can't read all of it. So, with all his responsibilities, we really wanted Jorge just to come and talk about China and what the Metro Atlanta Chamber has been doing in regards to recruiting business from China and what it plans to do in the years to come. So please help me welcome Jorge Fernandez.
I'm really impressed. It's amazing what students will do just to get a B.
Oh, they're much, much better than that.
下午好，你好吗? But anyhow, thank you. First of all, thank you for sharing part of the afternoon with us here. It's a pleasure to be here with partners here at Georgia Power and certainly with Georgia Department of Economic Development to talk about a very important market, which is China. And when it comes to economic development, we are all about marketing our region in market, and China certainly. It's a priority for all of us in this room. But global commerce is a two-way street. So yes, we do market our region and we concentrate on recruiting companies to come here. But equally important is how do we help our local companies grow their opportunities and their market in the Chinese market. In the same way, connecting the universities to other universities or universities to companies in the Chinese market. I think there's no secret that collectively in this room we have been reaching out to China for a number of years, and we've been very successful. We could go and name a lot of companies that have come here and a lot of companies that have succeeded in the Chinese market. But despite there's still challenges and there's still a lot of opportunities that we could pursue. I just recently had the opportunity, and I want to publicly thank Penny and Guanming, who were part of my mentor. I had the opportunity to teach for 2 months in Zhejiang province in the city of Hangzhou at China GAChinaAlliance University, and GAChinaAlliance means measurement. So it's the equivalent of Georgia Tech. They're not that high level, but they have 14 different colleges, but everybody graduates with a degree in engineering. So I got to really see China from a different perspective. I tell you, it's a complete different when we go there together. Like Doug is going with John Woodward, who worked for me, actually, when is it, next week or 2 weeks, to China. And I've been in many of the trips that Guanmin mentioned. It's a completely different perspective when you go and you go to the hotels and they pick you up and you go to meetings, or that when you arrive there and you're on your own and you're not in a hotel, but you're in a dorm at a university, and all of a sudden your Chinese gets much better because you depend on yourself. But I had 3 great basically thought of that experience that made the experience worthwhile. Number one, it's that immersion that gives you a completely different perspective of what China is really about. The second part was the student experience. To me, that was the most important part. Being able to communicate with the students and help them open the door, if you will, to a completely different perspective on how to do business international. I was at the business school, and what they asked us to do actually came out on one of this delegation that we received from Zhejiang province, working with the CCPIT, where they really wanted to create a program that would better prepare Chinese companies and Chinese delegation to be better and to do better businesses in the United States. And in one of the trips that we went a couple of years ago, this conversation took a second step, and the CCPIT in Zhejiang province said, why don't we start with the students, and one thing led to the other, and that's what it was all about. So that experience with the students was fantastic, and they're no different than students here and their aspiration, so I get to learn a different perspective. And last but not least, I became part of the faculty. And they asked me to represent the university at different forums, at different conferences, and to really learn what's in their mind, what is the concern of Chinese education system into the future. Which brings us to a topic that kind of link of what we're talking about. In the last few years, the Chinese companies have created more than 70,000 jobs in the United States. And it's predicted that by year 2020, there will be around 200 to 400,000. Jobs created in the United States alone by Chinese companies. However, the challenge is that the 17th Party Congress and the faculty and a lot of these things that we're talking about it's the number one obstacle to Chinese success in the United States. It's the lack of understanding of the US market. That is the number one priority. And I think that what we're doing here with GCA, and it plays exactly to what the Chinese government is trying to do, and with Chinese companies, it's what should be our role, rather than just the recruitment piece, rather than just talk to them about what are the assets that could contribute to Chinese, is how can we partner to really help the Chinese companies and the Chinese entrepreneur class particularly succeed in the United States, because one thing leads to the other. So congratulations, because I really think that the role that GCA can play in this looking forward in an approach to China could go way beyond in terms of just the traditional recruitment. And the universities, where many here represented, can certainly play a big role on this. So with that, I think continue what you're doing. Let's continue the partnership. China's a big country. We cannot just swallow. We have to eat this elephant one bite at a time, like I always say. We have to be very focused. What are the regions that make sense for us to work with? What are the right organizations? What are the right companies? And how do we match that? And you guys are really, really playing into the middle of that. So congratulations, and thank you for the invitation, for the opportunity to share some thoughts with you.
Thank you.
Sure, or whatever, but if you want
Any questions
Well,
for Jorge?
why don't we let Tom speak,
okay.
and then we can take questions together.
Together, okay, maybe let's do that.
Yeah.
Before I introduce my next speaker, I wanted to take just a minute to recognize the board members who are of GAChina Alliance who are in this room. So besides me, Dr. Coffey is on our board, and also Penny Prime, professor at Georgia State University. Rong Liu, raise your hand. She's with University of Georgia. Nikki Yu, she's with the Georgia Department of Economic Development on the trade side. She's also on our board. Anyone else? Ken Jin, there. He is I've already introduced him, executive director of the Confucius Institute at Kennesaw State University. Anyone else that I missed? I think that's all. Someone else would be coming later, but our next speaker is Tom Croto. Tom Croto is the Deputy Commissioner with the Georgia Department of Economic Development, and he's in charge of global commerce. And so he has, again, he leads a team at the state level.
Well, I mean, they don't want to hear all that. I'll tell them what they need to know. They don't want to
He's
read all
too
that.
humble. He's not going to tell you all these great things that he has done, but he has a big job. Let me just tell you that. He's in charge of creating jobs and bringing investment from all around the world to the entire state. While Jorge focuses on the Metro Atlanta area, Tom focuses on the entire state, so he has a big job on his shoulder. among the many responsibilities that Tom has, he also is in charge of the trade representative offices that Georgia has around the world, including 2 in China. So Tom has gone to China many times, and so he has a lot of stories to tell, and so we want to hear from him the state's strategy with regard to China, what we have installed, and the huge number of jobs that you promised that you're going to bring to China. But before I let him talk, I want to point out one commonality that we have besides our interest in China is that we are alumni. I just found out that Tom graduated from Florida State University, and that's where I got my law degree. So good to find out that point.
Thank you, Guang.
Help me welcome Tom Cook.
Will I mess up the camera if I stand over here?
No, not that lucky. Look, he's
So-
moving it.
This is my favorite type of speech, the speech where you get to have a beer in your hand. You know, and by the way, where's Mike? Jorge didn't literally mean to eat the xylophone, so don't try and eat your xylophone, please. I was speaking to a crowd recently that had a lot of involvement in China, and I meant to ask how many, because I look around the room, I see these ties that I've seen that I've already bought in China, and I meant to ask the people to raise their hand if they had bought their tie in China. But what I ended up saying was, raise your hand if your tie is from China. And of course, everybody in the room raised their hand, because everything is from China these days. They're all doing
It is whether
this.
you bought it there or not.
That's right. Well, thank you for allowing me to be with you tonight. You know, this thing has been rescheduled so many times that when I told my wife and kids that I had this tonight, they said, "Oh, good, you'll be home for dinner then." Guang and Doug asked me to talk just a little bit about the state's involvement in our activities in China. So I'll do that, but this really is supposed to be more of a networking reception, so I'm going to make my comments very brief so that we can get back to networking. You know, the state really went into China, the state of Georgia that is, in a concerted effort in 2008 when we opened an office in Beijing at the time under Governor Perdue. And we had some early excitement, some early successes with Sammy and some, which many, or some of the people in this room certainly were involved in, and some other successes. And then we had some growing pains, the state of Georgia did, that is. And we went through some staff changes there, and we ended up at about 2012 realizing that we had this strong relationship with the Shandong government that we had established through something called the Regional Leadership Summit, which is a joint effort of 7 states and provinces from 7 different countries around the world. So I'll be challenged to name them all, but Western Cape, Quebec, Upper Austria, Bavaria, Georgia, Shandong, and see, I'm missing one, but there's one more in there. Anyway, and we had formed this partnership and this relationship with Shandong government. And as we got to know the province better, you know, we also realized that we had some familiarity with with some of the folks there, and with Hisense having an operation here in Georgia, and being from Qingdao, and we really came to realize how many things we had in common with Qingdao, with the weather, and with being we have a great port and they have a great port. And, so we ended up opening an office. We really established that relationship in a more formal way in 2012, and then we formalized it with a governor's mission last year in August, where we formally announced and broke the ribbon on the office in 2013. So Seth Jacobs is our guy there in Qingdao. He is our our contract employee that represents us on the FDI side and helping us to identify business opportunities or companies that could invest in the U.S. We also have a trade office in Shanghai that is also a new relationship with us this year, so we're very excited about that. Excuse me. So our relationship has been growing. We're very excited about it. Let me see what other things that I wanted to mention to you. Oh, this July, there's a large horticultural exhibit that's going on in Qingdao that's going to attract about 22 million people to the city during the exhibit, which is pretty incredible. And we have a garden exhibit that UGA has helped us with that is going to be on display there. And so we'll have a mission going over in July that will be a trade, tourism, and education delegation. One of the things that's apparently, I am told, somewhat unique about our exhibit is it has a lot of grass, which I have been to China. Not medical grass. we're still going through all of that in the legislature right now. But I guess it has some Bermuda turf from Georgia in a pretty big area of it, probably a little bit bigger than this room, where we'll actually be able to host some people. We're going to show a film, and you don't see a lot of just real, grassy areas throughout China, and so there's been a lot of people that have commented on this garden exhibit. There's more than just the grass, I assure you, but that's certainly part of it. So we're excited about that as well. We certainly have a great educational presence in Georgia. UGA, Georgia Tech, Georgia State all have partnerships in Georgia, and we're working constantly with those universities to leverage those relationships and to make sure that they're growing, and that we're doing everything that we can to bring students here and have reciprocal. And of course, Kennesaw State also has relationships there as well. So really great things going on. Jorge mentioned some really terrific companies that have come here. Travel Sky, Self Electronics, of course, Sany, Hisense, Hires put a third-party distribution center down in Savannah. This will surprise nobody. Georgia is, or China is, the #1 country for our imports, right? So that's not really a surprise. China has also become the #1 country for our exports, which is a surprise. And they have now become the #2 country for tourism for the state of Georgia. Not so much in the numbers of people coming to Georgia. Yep. So a huge tourism market for us, and part of the Department of Economic Development, we really have 3 main sections, and global commerce and what we do in recruiting business is one, and tourism is another. So that's a big deal for us. And it's not so much the numbers of the people, but they're #2 in spending. So we love Chinese visitors. They come, they spend a lot of money. Sometimes they go to Miami too, but they listen to boring speeches. So sorry to disappoint you. We're also next in line for the next consulate from China, and something that we don't talk about an awful lot. We need some cooperation from our own federal government in that process, but China's already told us that the next consulate will be here whenever our government decides to put their next consulate in China. So we're really proud, obviously, of our growing population here, of our growing relationships with people, with businesses, personal relationships like these. And we're so proud of the Georgia-China Alliance and everything that you all are doing to raise those relationships more. So thank you very much for allowing me to be with you.
over here.
Yeah.
Does Georgia have any plans to have another direct flight back to China?
That's a question for Delta.
That's a question for you.
We would love that, and you know, Jorge it comes from Delta. I won't put him on the spot. But of course, we had that flight, and we were thrilled to have that flight, and we lost it really a little bit before the merger. But the merger with Northwest and Delta didn't help us in that process. A consulate would definitely help us in that process. But Delta does tell us that we are going to get that flight back, and it's just a matter of time. And that it was.
What needs to happen is, with organizations like this, is to prove to Delta that that's a sustainable market. That's
we hear from them within the next couple of years that that flight will be back. Yes.
Is the state participating in the Invest US thing happening in China?
I'm not sure. We had a presence and did a big event with Invest US. It's not Invest US. It's
Select
USA.
USA. Thank you. That's in Center.
In Washington D.C. We typically do participate in other countries. We have 11 offices now in 10 countries around the world, and so we're always in touch with Select USA and vice versa. They let us know when they're having events, and we do everything we can to support them. Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, so I have a rather different question. I think Georgia has experienced, has made tremendous effort in terms of raising the public awareness about the state and attracting foreign investment from China. But at the same time, I believe we're also facing a lot of strong competitions from other states. So my question is, have we thought about entertaining the strategy of maybe targeting towards larger state-owned companies in China? Because as we know, a lot of the state-owned enterprise in China are conglomerates with very diverse portfolio, but at the same time, they have a lot of resources and they're very willing to go out for investment. But the downside or the disadvantage or the challenging part of that is a lot of them carries this sensitivity that, we call it the technology transfer. So that actually bringing a different discussion with Washington, D.C., because that's the area where I work, and I feel so warm here in this room. When I go to D.C. with the Chinese industry, it's totally, completely opposite sentiment in the room. So my question is, there is a strong desire for those type of companies coming to the state, but they feel like it's very difficult because of the regulatory obstacles, as well as a lot of political sensitivities. But on the other hand, if we could provide some kind of service or support for that type of investment, that could be very unique compared with other states. So I was wondering if we have
That's a great question. And first, let me say, I'm so happy that you feel warm amongst us.
I do mean temperature.
That's really, really important for us, right?
Right.
That's what we're trying to do here. When I mentioned we first started out in 2008 and had some growing pains, that was part of our strategy, is really to target SOEs specifically. And what we found along the way is certainly well-capitalized companies, companies that were being encouraged to globalize, and some really great people to work with terrific contacts, right? But there also are great entrepreneurial companies as well, as we've found, Jorge. And so there's certainly a place for both. There are different ways. As Jorge mentioned, it's a big country. And there are a lot of companies, and the way that those companies are growing is phenomenal. It's unbelievable when you meet with a company who says that they began in 2002 and they are a multi-billion-dollar company already, right? The challenges of the SOEs certainly are dealing with the level of competition and how many competitors are over here. We really tend to gravitate on our end towards companies that are already selling here in the States. What we have found is if you have product that's already coming in the state, you know how to compete, you have existing customers, and you're not trying to come into the market, locate some type of facility, and do business development all at once. And so some of those companies are SOEs, some of them are more of the smaller privately owned entrepreneurial companies, and we enjoy working with both. Any other questions?
Do you have any institutionalized way of following up with companies after they invest to ensure that they're doing okay? I know we've had some problems in the past after companies have set up.
We do, and we work in kind of follow up, little ambassador program, which is sort of evolving, and we're now looking at what's called business walk, in which we're targeting specific by market and sectors to actually follow up on how they're doing, and this is an integral part of our strategy of business growth. We found that recruitment, it is a key element for economic development, but there's no secret, if you go to any economic development meetings or forums today, the biggest chunk of growth of jobs are in growth of existing companies. So we sort of channeling some of the efforts into existing companies, and from our perspective and handling internationally is to follow up on those companies that we have had some say in bringing them here. So that's part of that institution. So that's key. And we have a vested interest in ensuring that they succeed because they are the best PR person. They're much better. Like Mr. Lin from Self Electronic, we put him in a lot of the joint events that we've done together. He will travel. He's in Ningbo, but he travels anywhere in China to talk on behalf of Georgia. And those are the type of testimonies that really goes way. And so the more that we work with them to ensure so that they grow and they feel warm in this market and an integral part of the community, the better off we are. And we need help. I mean, we can't do it alone. And this is big. And this is something that we depend on our partners, we depend on our associates, and that's where some of the things, I get a lot of questions, how could I get engaged in helping on this type of helping us follow up with companies, whether it be the Georgia Department of Economic Development or organizations or companies you get involved from your own private practice, the one that we get involved with, and the better off we are.
Or the Georgia-China Alliance.
Yeah. Or many other organizations that deal with.
And I have to say that the Global Commerce Council at the Metro Atlanta Chamber is a great place to get information and stay up to date about what is happening in the Metro Atlanta area in terms of international business transactions. They meet very early in the morning, 7:30, but it's a great place to get a lot of information. So I go whenever I can. And one thing that you will hear again and again is involvement, engagement, and they do provide you a lot of opportunities to get involved, get engaged. So like the ambassador program is a good example. So.
Yeah, and I think that one thing you can take out for the benefit of all of us in this room is the more we create a connected network out there, particularly when it comes to China, the better off we all are. From a business perspective, from an organization perspective, from the state perspective, that's what it's all about. But we need help. We need your engagement. We need that connectivity to do those type of things.
And also to Travis, the question about following up, I don't know about the institutional way to follow up, but I know that all the companies that Stella recruits, she stays involved with them all the time. So in a way, it is, institutional, I think but she stays in touch with them all the time.
But Stella needs help too, so that's the issue. I mean, this is all about. By the way, as a disclaimer, or as one of when you talk about Metro Atlanta, does everybody know how many counties do you think Metro Atlanta encompasses?
150.
It's close.
159 is the whole state. But the Metro Atlanta actually is defined. It's defined by the census what they find with the statistic metropolitan areas are in the United States? Any guesses?
17.
29 right now. 24,000 square kilometers. So it's a huge area. It's not, a lot of people think it's just about Atlanta. It's the whole mega city.
Well, the goal of today's event is really to network, to
Yes.
periodically we do this so that people will know who in this community is interested in China, is doing business in China. We want to provide you a platform to network and connect with each other, and that's what we're doing today. Jorge and Tom are going to stay for a while, so if you have questions, catch them, and enjoy wonderful food outside, drinks, and
Yeah,
beautiful facility and beautiful pictures
And nice weather.
and nice
And
weather.
Tom has a leg on, so we have to hit the bar.
And Tom at least has to finish his beer, so let him go before he finishes the beer.
Enjoy, and
Enjoy.
thank you again, Georgia Power.
Great job, great job.
Oh, thank you.
I enjoyed it.
Tom, I think.